potentially fraudulent claims, and that's resulted in a few recommendations and protocols that the fund staff is implementing. One thing they did, which I think was very helpful, was they developed and published a standard reasonable and necessary rate schedule for various goods and services that are commonly provided. So if you get outside that range of what's reasonable and necessary, further inquiry is warranted. Also, we've provided training to the staff on how to identify altered or fake invoices for equipment, which is something that happens more frequently than you might imagine. And then also making sure that claims have complete backup in terms of timesheets for hours worked and other things that are required by our regulations. And Lisa touched on that a bit. And then finally, and I think very importantly, and this came out of the 2009 audit, the fund staff has gone to a yearly budget approach for each site so that we can't get into these very freewheeling claims that exceed a reasonable amount of time to process and to review. So briefly, that's what we've been up to in the last 6 months, or actually a couple of years, at the Office of Enforcement and conjunction with the cleanup fund staff.
I would like to just add one more thing that I missed and we both were going to talk about, which is, you know, we've, in that GeoTracker FSR, we have a piece where we would like to have data submitted directly online by the consultants so that we can do automatic data checking. So it will not only improve payment processing times significantly, but also have automatic error checking, data error checking, which will, you know, improve the prevention aspects as well.
Right. Great. That's impressive. Questions?
I assume you'll let us know as soon as you know what Department of Public Health is going to do with the lab materials that you left. When did you leave them?
We provide the materials to DPH at the end of March, and my understanding is they have an investigation unit there, or a prosecution enforcement type unit, and the person that we spoke with there, I think he's recently been appointed as one of the acting deputies at DPH. So our expectation is that we're hoping that DPH will take some action there because I'm actually preparing to provide another case referral to them about a different lab. So,
and I guess, and this came up at the briefing, but I just want to get it on the record that it'll be important for us in our other permitting units to be aware of when the labs that are under investigation have been used and in what permits they have been used, because there may be that may be something that we'll want to double check on. We want to double check on those numbers.
we try to communicate this information to the regional boards and the state board units consistent with due process concerns about the right to be heard and address the charges against you. But certainly important to make sure that communications are flowing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. I know that you guys have had to answer some of the tough questions I've had in the briefings and before the meeting with respect to...
This is sort of TAM day.
Yes, I know. I think this is a question from Ms. Haven. We've recently had a discussion, and you had a discussion at my request with Mr. Howard, who's not here today, with respect to what else that can be done to help Ms. Babcock's staff, your staff, process the claims perhaps a little bit faster. I know that the discussions are still ongoing, but at this time, is there anything new you have to report in terms of additional changes and activities to help improve in that process? Because I'm sure there will well, I don't know who's left in the audience, but there's always a great deal of interest in terms of claim processing time.
Thank you, Board Member Doda. As has been discussed, there is always a balance between the need to process rapidly and the need to scrutinize claims for potential fraud. So as Lisa mentioned, we are very hopeful that the enhancements to GeoTracker, which should be forthcoming over the next year if the contracting issues are settled, will help us significantly with that. Short of that, I can't promise anything radical, but we are doing what we can within existing resources. There have been times in the past when the fund has kind of called all hands on deck and put them into claims processing, but that is only a short-term solution because other backlogs ensue. So we're looking at possibly deploying a few other staff in addition to the one we've already done. But we're mindful of not creating a problem in a new area. One thing that where the regulated community could help us is with prompt submittal of their claims. As has been mentioned several times, there are annual site budgets, but we do accept claims during the year. We have encouraged people to submit claims as the costs are incurred. And I would think this would be standard business practice, but actually what we have been seeing the last couple years with the site budgets is that we get very few claims submitted until the whole fiscal year is over. And then they come in droves, and we've put a September 30th cutoff. But what that creates is sort of a workload crisis. You can't manage when you have, you know, a dribble of things come in and then all of a sudden you get the dump. So we're going to see what we can do, working with the Office of Chief Counsel to try to see whether, you know, we might be able to only give high priority to the claims that come in a timely manner and, you know, adjust priority based on how old the claim is, that kind of a step.
Have you reached out and asked some of the consultants and contractors what's going on, you know, what's prompting this, and how can we address this in a better way?
We did. We did all last year and this year, and at the end, there's no, I mean, we've had the communication. They don't know. And, you know, we send out, you know, reminders.
I heard at one point that it was that we had placed a minimum amount for each claim in terms of a financial, a fiscal amount, and they were waiting to reach that amount before submitting their claims?
I believe it's actually in statute that you can't submit a claim for less than $10,000, but we do accept them.
Oh, I'm Therese. I'm channeling Therese Barracat, and she says it's in regulation.
Oh, it's in regulation. Anyway.
Are people aware that they can submit claims to us that are less than $10,000? They don't have to wait? And
It's in regulation.
okay, well, we'll talk about that. Okay.
Okay, I will just point one thing out that we did here, because I did attend some of those meetings. And, you know, there is workload involved with invoicing the state board. So I don't want to minimize that there is a challenge there. And again, we are hopeful that the GeoTracker enhancement will allow people to submit electronically, thereby decreasing the amount of work required to submit claims.
I definitely look forward to those GeoTracker enhancement, Ms. Larson.
So what we did find was, you know, our average was about 121 days to, and it's not the 60 days mandatory statutory deadline, but we had 120 days, 130 days, and when we got the, you know, the 2/3 of the whole fiscal year's reimbursement requests last September, you know, it put us, you know, like 4,000, put us back about 6 months. Anyway, expanded that to about 160 days. So added about 30, 40 days because, you know, you get them all at once, and now that time is tracking against you. So.
Yeah, I've been having a lot of meetings and discussion with Ms. Haven and Ms. Babcock because the idea of not meeting a statutory deadline is very uncomfortable for me. And we've heard from a lot of stakeholders that we have not, and actually, I guess, have never met that 60-day statutory deadline. So either we need to do something about that deadline, admit it's impossible, and move on from there, or somehow be even more creative, and I don't know what the solution is, but it is a dilemma for us. And then my final thought is, Mr. Laufer, I did not bring up items that you asked me not to bring up today, but as a consequence of that, I will want to meet with the UST program staff and OCC to specifically discuss some of the paperwork and options we have to streamline towards closure once a technical determination has been made that these sites are ready for closure.
Well, just if I might add, I remind Liz that John Russell and Lisa have prepared a draft communications plan for interfacing with claimants from the fund, which seems like it will, and just as an observer, seems like it will really promote efficiencies in communicating with the regulated public and in claim processing. We've received, I think John's received some comments on it too, but just another effort they've made to try to smooth the flow of communications between the claimants and the consultants and the fund staff.
And it is, and I've actually heard some feedback on that, and as you can imagine, change is never easy for people. Certain people are used to be able to call up certain staff and get immediate responses, or not immediate, but get responses, and now they're having to go through a different process, and that is very discomforting to some of them. So, just bear in mind, and I don't know how we are communicating to people that these changes are taking place, but again, it's difficult for them to grasp that there is a new channel of communication that staff is trying to instigate these days. Institute, sorry.
Right. I appreciate that and appreciate Chris's bringing it up. Just to be clear, this communication plan that John Russell drafted up is draft still, and we just received the comments very recently, so we're looking at those. But in the back of our mind, actually in the front of our minds, is the fact that the more interruptions people receive, the more it slows down payment processing potentially. And so we need to balance. Again, we pride ourselves in DFA on being customer service organization. On the other hand, there's such a thing as too much when, anybody who calls for any reason, whether it's the right person or the wrong person, or they just ask the same question to somebody down the hall, that's just disruptive and not an efficient workplace. So we will be reviewing the comments we received and implementing some version of the communication plan, and we will make the effort to communicate that in advance of implementing.
Sorry. Mr. Bishop? Thank you to the rest of you who've been waiting patiently. We're moving to item 8.
Yes. So,
And that's it.
on the wrong page, I'm sorry. Item 8, close to my heart. Item 8 is on our Water Quality Monitoring Council and our water quality portals. And John Marshak, our coordinator and staff for the councils, is here, and Karen is assisting him. And I am going to turn it over.
Thank you.
Hi.
Chairwoman Marcus and board members, I'm John Marshak of the State Water Board's Office of Information Management and Analysis, and I am coordinator for the Water Quality Monitoring Council, as Mr. Bishop indicated. Today I plan to provide you with an update on the Monitoring Council, its strategy for improving water quality and associated ecosystem monitoring, assessment, and reporting, its theme-specific work groups, and the My Water Quality internet portals. Many federal, state, and local agencies, regulated dischargers, and hundreds of water bond grant recipients spend millions of dollars each year collecting water quality data in California. These data must be turned into useful information to help decision makers and stakeholders understand the status of our waters and aquatic ecosystems, public health and welfare issues related to water quality, and the effectiveness of agency programs to manage our water resources. But California's water quality and aquatic ecosystem information system needs improvement. There are inconsistent monitoring objectives and methods to collect and assess the data, as shown in this map of Clean Water Act, Section 303D, Impaired Waters. In this example, differences in assessment strategies make it appear that the North Coast waters are the most impaired, where they're actually some of the state's cleanest waters. Often it's not possible to integrate data from multiple sources, and there's no single user-friendly place to access the data. In response, State Senate Bill 1070 was signed into law in 2006, requiring the California Environmental Protection and Natural Resources agencies to enter into an MOU establishing the California Water Quality Monitoring Council. The legislation and MOU required that by December 2008, the Monitoring Council report its initial recommendations for maximizing the efficiency and effectiveness of existing water quality and associated ecosystem health data collection and dissemination, and for ensuring that collected data are available for use by decision makers and the public. SB 1070 also required that these recommendations lead to the development of a comprehensive monitoring program strategy for California, which was delivered to the agency secretaries in December 2010. Members of the Monitoring Council represent a diversity of interests, including state regulatory, resource management, and public health agencies, regulated stormwater, wastewater, and agricultural interests, water suppliers, citizen monitoring groups, the scientific community, and the public. The Monitoring Council believes that the best way to coordinate and enhance California's monitoring efforts is to first focus on a platform for intuitive, streamlined access to water quality and aquatic ecosystem information that directly addresses users' questions. Theme-specific work groups, under the overarching guidance of the Monitoring Council, evaluate existing monitoring, assessment, and reporting efforts and work to enhance those efforts so as to improve the delivery of information to the user in the form of theme-based internet portals. All of these portals are accessed through a single point of entry, the My Water Quality website. The My Water Quality website is designed around intuitively clear questions that are readily understood by managers, legislators, scientists, and the public. Is our water safe to drink? Is it safe to swim in our waters? Is it safe to eat fish and shellfish from our waters? Are our aquatic ecosystems healthy? I'll present a few highlights of these evolving portals. Each question leads to a series of web pages that provide map-based access to summary assessment information and more detailed monitoring data that address more detailed questions. The Safe to Swim portal initially focuses on coastal beaches, bays, and estuaries. 2 beach water quality work groups coordinate the monitoring efforts of state and local agencies and coastal dischargers and the assessment efforts of regional environmental interests. These data and a variety of assessment tools are included in this web portal released to the public in July of 2009. This was the very first portal released by the Monitoring Council. To address the question, can I swim at my beach today? The portal presents Heal the Bay's Ocean Beach Report Card. Each beach is given a swimming safety color code and letter grade based on bacterial indicator data for the last 30 days. Nearby beaches are also shown with their color code scores. As you can see, this beach is not recommended for swimming, while nearby beaches appear to be safer. The Safe to Swim Trends page presents bacterial indicator data for each coastal beach monitoring location. For each station, the map presents who performs the sampling and a graph of bacterial indicator data compared with water quality standards from the California Ocean Plan established to protect recreational water use. This graph shows total coliform data for Gaviota Beach. The red and blue lines represent applicable water quality objectives, single sample and 30-day. In addition to the Safe to Swim portal, the My Water Quality website currently provides access to portals that address the safety of eating fish and shellfish and the health of our aquatic ecosystems. A portal that addresses the question, is it safe to eat fish and shellfish from our waters, was developed by the Bioaccumulation Oversight Group, a collaborative effort, interagency effort, to assess the accumulation of pollutants such as mercury and legacy pesticides in fish that people eat. Fish consumption advisories and safe eating guidelines by water body are presented on this page, which addresses the question, can I eat fish and shellfish caught in my lake, stream, or ocean location? Clicking on a water body provides information about the pollutants of concern, in this case mercury, and a link to advisory information about eating fish and shellfish from this water body. Each advisory presents a pictographic view of which fish are recommended for consumption and how many meals per week are considered to be safe. Fish containing sufficient heart-healthy omega-3 fatty acids are marked with the heart symbol. The Data and Trends page presents raw data on fish contaminants color-coded by concentration ranges that correspond to the fish consumption advisory levels developed by OEHA. The user can select which fish species and contaminant to view and the date ranges of interest. Clicking on a sample location presents fish contaminant data for that site, as well as a comparison of data from nearby locations. Oops. The Impaired Waters page of the portal presents water bodies in red that are listed as impaired for the fishing beneficial use pursuant to Section 303D of the Federal Clean Water Act. For each impaired water body, the map presents the pollutant associated with the impairment, potential sources of that pollution, the size of the affected water body or segment, area or segment, the status of TMDL development to address the problem, and links to TMDL information that present a plan to bring that water body back into compliance with water quality standards. Coming back to the My Water Quality website, let's now look at the question, are our aquatic ecosystems healthy? Ecosystem health information is broken down by water body type. Let's first look at streams, rivers, and lakes. Organized by the Water Board's Surface Water Ambient Monitoring Program, the Healthy Streams Partnership provides information about the extent and condition of California's streams and rivers through the Healthy Streams portal. The home page includes an interactive graphic to educate the public about factors that can make a stream healthy or unhealthy. Mousing over the homepage diagram highlights numerous factors that affect the health of our stream, river, and lake ecosystems. Clicking on a factor provides detailed information about the importance of that factor and access to related stream health data and assessment information. This page addresses the question, what do benthic macroinvertebrates tell us about the health of our streams? Bioassessment information from the Perennial Streams Assessment Program is presented here, along with summary statistics about the health of California's perennial streams. Clicking on a sample location provides access to raw data and assessment scores. This page presents assessment information to address the question, how toxic is the water in our streams, rivers, and lakes, showing where pollution and other problems cause waters to be toxic to aquatic organisms. Fortunately, the majority of California's waters fall into the non-toxic category. The My Water Quality website also presents information about the health of California's wetland ecosystem. The California Wetland Monitoring Work Group coordinates the efforts of 23 state, federal, and local organizations to assess the extent and health of California's wetlands. This page from the soon-to-be-released upgrade of their California Wetlands portal provides map-based access to information that addresses the questions, what is the extent of our wetlands? How healthy are they? And how are wetlands protected? This page addresses the questions, where are California's wetlands? It presents through an interactive map the location and extent of a variety of wetland types found throughout the state, in this case focusing on Moss Landing. Wetland health is addressed by presenting scores from the California Rapid Assessment Method, or CRAM. CRAM assesses 4 overarching attributes of wetland condition: buffer and landscape context, hydrologic regime, physical structure, and biotic structure. By combining these scores for the attributes, an overall score for wetland health is derived. This page of the wetland portal provides information about wetland restoration projects by asking the question, where are wetlands being restored near me? Soon to be added will be a new portal focusing on California's estuaries. The Estuary Monitoring Workgroup is working to coordinate data and assessment information from numerous sources about the San Francisco Bay Delta estuary. Their portal will tell stories about the condition of major biological resources of the estuary, drivers of estuary health, and detailed data about the estuary's physical, hydrologic, and chemical condition. Additional portals are planned to address the questions, is our water safe to drink, and are ocean and coastal ecosystems healthy? Led by the Department of Public Health, the Safe Drinking Water Workgroup plans to tell the entire story of water quality, delivery, and treatment from source to tap, presenting each agency's role in the process. The Ocean Science Trust and Ocean Protection Council are working to develop a roadmap that will lead to the development of an ocean ecosystem health portal. In summary, to date we have 7 theme-specific work groups, each focused on a high-level management question under the oversight of the Monitoring Council. These questions address key beneficial uses of California's waters in all water body types. In addition, the Monitoring Council has established a data management work group to address data access, web, and GIS issues common to the theme-specific work groups, developing a distributed network of water quality data that keeps the data as close to its source so as to maintain high quality while at the same time providing universal access, similar to our development of CDN, but in a broader context, multi-agency. Finally, the Monitoring Council's Water Quality Monitoring Collaboration Network provides regular web-based seminars that address monitoring, assessment, and reporting issues common to a wide variety of organizations that monitor water quality and ecosystem health, including our citizen monitoring groups. Recently,
Sorry to interrupt, John. It's a great graphic, but based on my that DSAL public meeting that we went to, there might be, you have to replace the not applicable on ocean waters and is our water safe to drink?
good point. Thank
Just
you,
a
Board
little
Member Moore.
late breaking input.
Always new things to think about. We recently added tap water to this diagram because we were initially thinking in, a more water resources, and when we got the Safe to Drink work group together, it's like, wait a minute, tap water is a really important concept that we need to cover. So that was a recent addition to this. And so, yes, DSAL will have to be covered at some point here. A new development, the Natural Resources Agency has found funding for a half-time person to act as an additional coordinator for the Monitoring Council from their perspective, and we have set up a meeting with them later this week to get to know that person and to figure out how we're going to divide up the work. This is a lot more, about a lot more than just putting something up on the web. It's about directly addressing questions that decision makers and the public have about their aquatic resources. It's also about forming lasting relationships and implementing a portal design that both requires and motivates parties to solve monitoring and assessment coordination and data integration problems with a focus on directly addressing management questions. The presence of the portals provides a conceptual structure that initiates dialogue between existing and emerging monitoring programs, thereby providing the opportunity to think more broadly than they would otherwise do and enabling broader assessments than were possible before. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
So John left out one essential part, is that we use the portal design to shame people into getting their data up on there.
And since Mr. Bishop is sitting right next to Ms. Turgovich, at some point in the future, I would love to see us start linking the idea of my water quality data and portal and information to our performance metric standards and our performance report, because there should be a link between what we do and the outcome, which are then reflected in the water quality information that we have.
That actually is one of our goals, that the
Excellent.
performance report includes environmental outcomes, and eventually as the portals are built out, they'll be able to act as performance reports, not just for the water boards, but for the Department of Water Resources, Public Health, and Fish and Wildlife, any other agency that's involved in these issues. So actually that's one of the incentives that we're trying to put forward to the various agencies to get them to work with us, is this tool can actually help you in meeting your own goals of your individual organizations and save you time and effort and automating that process.
So you'll have the timeline function.
Yes.
And I would remind, the board, I think you all know this, but this is not actually a state water board project. It is a independent council that was developed by the legislature to be multi-agency. So it's really encouraging to see that we're now going to have another staff resource that's going to come from a different agency, since we've been staffing it for since the beginning.
I'd also like to mention that as a part of the estuary portal that John was talking about, our Bay Delta staff recently had a presentation by Val Connor and a group of individuals that she's working with on an interactive element related to compliance with our requirements under D1641. And so it will be an interactive system. It's currently on Bay Delta Live. It'll be integrated with the estuary portal. And we are looking at linking the information or making it available through a series of layers, and John can talk about it more if he'd like, so that it becomes relevant in the context of other Delta information. So we were pretty excited to see that.
That's something that actually Rich Brewer had envisioned when he was still at Department of Water Resources before he came over to the water boards, that we have this static report once a year that presents water quality in conformance with D1641. Why can't we have an interactive report online that actually staff can use to determine, are we in compliance with that directive, and are those data in a format that are useful to a wide variety of interests? So that's going to be an integral portion of the ecosystem health portals through the estuary portal, but also we're working with Department of Fish and Wildlife and Department of Water Resources to look at, as Delta restoration projects start ramping up, as the Delta plan is implemented, that we have a mechanism to record progress with all of those projects as well, and that it's transparent to the public, it's available to the various agencies involved, and the Delta Conservancy is at the forefront of trying to standardize that using the tools actually that came from the Wetland Monitoring Work Group, the Eco Atlas and Wetland Tracker functions.
So while tomorrow is our Delta Day,
Cool.
here's a prelude or an opening, and think back to the workshops last fall and all of the conversation that we had about the various monitoring efforts and the need for greater integration. This is a tremendous opportunity.
I just want to add that this whole approach has opened up some opportunities of going outside the state funding system and agency funding system. I know that the Ocean Science Trust has applied for funding to help develop the ocean portal, and is hopeful that they're going to get that funding. And so, and I know there are some other foundations that are interested, particularly on the data side. So I think there are some opportunities that those of us who can kind of bridge between state government and the funding, the outside funding community, the philanthropic community, that there are some real possibilities here.
That's a wonderful point to bring out. Actually, the first outside funding source was the State and Federal Contractors Water Agency that came forward, and they're completely funding the development of the estuary portal for about a 3-year period.
Wow. I didn't know that. Great.
So the more we can make that work, the cheaper it is for us.
Yeah, that's right. Definitely.
I wasn't looking for this as you went through the slides, so I don't know if you had this already. I was just kind of following the presentation, but now wondering if it can be used as a tool, and maybe you already have incorporated this, for education. So for example, on the ocean site, if I want to go on the site and determine whether or not it's safe to swim in a nearby beach, it would sure be nice to know what I could do to ensure the safety of the beach. So a link to measures that the public can take, or on is my water safe to drink, a link to things that the public can do to conserve and the relationship between water conservation and water quality.
That's a wonderful point. Thank you
really
for bringing that up. With the release of the Healthy Streams portal a year ago, we added a whole segment on what the average citizen can do to get involved in assessing and protecting their water resources. And we're going to be adding that to the estuary portal as well. We don't have a lot of information on that yet for the Safe to Swim portal, but we will be adding that over time. That's going to become an integral portion. For example, getting involved in your local citizen monitoring groups or stewardship involvement, and then providing really easy links to those outside organizations that people can plug into for that kind of work.
Great.
Well, this is a great presentation. Thank you. Close to my heart, too. I worked on a monitoring and assessment strategy document in 1999, and, you know, availability of data and you know, it's QA'd properly and on the web, you know, it was all just a, you know, a dream in our minds at that time. And so I see that coming true. So I want to circle back to earlier in our day here before we wrap things up. You know, for instance, in the cost of compliance discussion, we hear a lot about, well, gee, you know, this monitoring that we submit, it never gets looked at. Is there ways we could be more efficient? Is there some data management, you know, that could enable us to be more fine-tuned and efficient in our monitoring and reporting? Do you see these efforts of data being available on the web as facilitating that that exercise?
Absolutely, Board Member Moore. The Monitoring Council's comprehensive strategy calls for eventually forming a statewide network of data infrastructure at all the organizations that monitor water quality and aquatic ecosystems, so that if I'm a person writing an MPDS permit, I can see not only water board data, but Department of Water Resources data, Department of Fish and Wildlife data, and so on. Data collected by some of the outside organizations, SWRCB and SFEI and Moss Landing Marine Labs, and be able to integrate that data visually on a map with charts, with diagrams, and interactive functionality, so that it'll bring more data to bear to our regulatory decisions.
It's really good, and I think that speaks to, you know, our overall synergy in trying to be more effective, both on the regulated side and the regulation and assessment work. Also, we can circle back to recommendation 7 of the SWRCB report, which said improve and expand use of scientific data research and planning, and it refers to SWAMP. And Karen Larson and I were at a Healthy Headwaters workshop a couple weeks ago, held by Carpe Diem West, and one of the axes people have to grind there is data's in all these different places, fish and wildlife, fish and game, well, formerly, you know, et cetera. You just touched on that issue. It seems to me some folks may not be completely looped into all of the progress that CDN and My Water Quality is making, and as Fran points out, this is, you know, other foundations are plugging in. It seems like we're, you know, John and Karen, we're at the core of something pretty important that helps not just our agency, but all of those involved in water resource management.
Thank you. This is actually one of the issues that we're having moving forward with this whole My Water Quality and Monitoring Council concept, is that the legislation that started the ball rolling assumed that, well, if you're coordinating monitoring, then you'll be able to reduce redundant monitoring. There'll be cost savings, and so overall, it won't cost any more than it does now. Well, we've come to realize in about 4 years of trying to implement this, there is a cost to initiating and maintaining collaboration. It takes people out of their normal cubicles. They have to meet together, they have to talk, they have to communicate. The agencies involved have to figure out, how am I going to pay to add web services to my data structures so that other agencies can get my data without calling me up and saying, send me a CD. You know, these things do cost money, but I think we're little by little convincing one organization at a time that these are important to do. It'll not only help other people, but it'll help their own staff in moving forward towards their own goals.
Potentially, God, I can't even talk anymore.
You're a little tired. I'm sorry, maybe if I knew it was so long, I would have given people an hour for lunch. It's a blood sugar
That's
thing,
okay.
I'm afraid.
You know, we are moving forward with using CEDN for also doing our integrated report analysis, which provides a more incentive for folks to get their data in there so that we can use it, and then it's available for other folks to use, not just for us. And so it's coming from lots of different directions, you know, using our regulatory pieces where we can. Our permits say you got to put your ambient data into CEDN now. Our effluent data goes into SWRCB now. So we have, we're starting to make that process from a lot of different directions, but it's coming together now.
And we're creating linkages between CEDN and other data systems. For example, WQX, the Water Quality Exchange, which is a collaborative effort between US EPA and USGS to merge their water quality data systems, has a linkage with CEDN. It's not two-way yet, but we're working on that. So once that's made two-way, we can get access to all of the data that are available in that much larger system, as well as having EPA and USGS get availability to get access to our CEDN data. And then linkages between SWRCB and CEDN are also being explored to again, make more data available to answer questions.
Right. Thank you. It's great to see things happening. People have talked about this for 20, 30 years, and I'm really encouraged by the just getting in there and taking on each one of those quadrants and finding new partners and all of that. It's very encouraging. All right, we do have a speaker card. Sorry to make you wait so long while we chatted. She's going to resolve everything for us, see, so we could have just had, no. Tracy Skelton from the Earth Law Center. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon, Chair Marcus and board members. And Mr. Marsak, thank you so much for your presentation. I really appreciated that. It's very educational for me. My name is Tracy Skelton, and I am here on behalf of Earth Law Center, working with Linda Sheehan. Earth Law Center works to advance the rights of waterways to flow with clean water. A significant part of our work involves promoting integrated management structures that examine and report on the health of ecosystems as a whole. Holistic understanding of ecosystem health will help us to change our behavior to best protect the well-being of the natural world. Earth Law Center strongly supports the My Water Quality Initiative as a model example of how to bring agencies and researchers together, to better understand ecosystem health holistically. We encourage the State Board to continue to reach out to other agencies to complete and maintain the work that has already been started. We particularly ask that special attention be paid to establishing the Ocean and Coastal Waters Portal as soon as possible. And I know that that's something Mr. Marshak mentioned in his presentation. In light of the work being done by both the Water Board and the Natural Resources Agency to protect the ocean, such as through the Marine Life Protection Act and areas of special biological significance processes, now is a critical time to set up a portal that can help bring these important efforts together to answer the question, are our coast and ocean ecosystems healthy? When laying the foundation for the Ocean and Coastal's Water Portal, we urge the board to take a leadership role in helping the group to define what healthy ocean and coastal ecosystems look like. Our regulatory system should reflect the interconnectedness of ocean, coastal, and inland ecosystems. As the board knows, ocean degradation occurs as a result of the synergistic effect of multiple impacts. some seemingly insignificant. Our current governance model is focused on meeting generally segmented ocean standards which do not capture a true picture of ocean degradation and which set the bar lower than actual ocean health. We challenge the board to look at ocean ecosystems in an integrated fashion, agree upon what healthy looks like, determine a strategy for tracking integrated ocean health as opposed to tracking degradation or merely segments of ocean health or degradation, excuse me, microphone. And then use the information collected to merely to develop new standards that reflect true, healthy, flourishing ecosystems. We urge the board to work closely with the Ocean Protection Council and other responsible entities on this enterprise. Thank you again for the opportunity to provide these comments. We look forward to working with you and your staff to expand this important program and extend it into the marine environment. Thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you. That's a really good point.
So I'd just like to inform the board that we've been working with the Ocean Science Trust and the Ocean Protection Council on a project, I guess as they call it. They now have a fellow working at SWRCB. I'm looking over there to make sure I say it right. That is charged with looking at the monitoring data from the marine protected areas and the monitoring data from our ambient ASBS monitoring, and looking at them together. You know, one is an ecological based and one is a water quality based, and it seems to us that looking at those two data sets and trying to integrate them and see what they tell about the other is an important step. And so we're working a while to do that, but it's now in its come together, and I'm very happy about that, and we will report that back to the board at some future date when we have when they're done, essentially, and they have some recommendations and some analysis of that. But I'm really excited. Essentially, a lot of what she was saying.
Great. Great. Well, with that, thank you all for your time, and we will adjourn until tomorrow at 9. Thanks.
Nice to meet you. It's been interesting all day today, listening to all the things that are happening. Good. Nice to meet you.